Hello and welcome to the garden. Well, it's a horrendous day today. The wind is howling, it's raining. I apologise for I can already see there's drops of rain on the lens and there'll be wind noise on the mic, so sorry about that, but it's just a quick video today because I have received yet another free plant. Yes, and it is Sutton's again. Similar to the last video, they used one of my videos in one of their articles. I'll leave a link to it in the description below. Again, it was a pruning video and they offered me a free tree, this time a pear. And actually, I'm quite pleased with that because I've got one pear tree that I'd like to replace, one of our cordons. I replaced one last winter. That one's doing okay, nothing great from that yet. But I've got another there that I'm thinking about replacing. It's never done particularly well for us. Not sure why, possibly wrong variety in the wrong place. I mean, that's quite common. There are so many varieties and they don't all suit, and maybe that one was a bad pick. But anyway, I've got a replacement and I was delighted when I noticed they'd offered doyen de comis, and that is a very fine dessert pear, and I'd probably put that in my top 10 pears. There are so many fantastic pears though, and there's a reason why I don't have comis here at the moment. It's simply because it's so readily available from the greengrocers or the supermarket. That's not a bad thing. It's unlike the apples, where I think there are very few apples that are commercially grown that are worth bothering with. It's quite different with the pears. There are several of them that are commercially grown and very nice pears. And comis is undoubtedly the finest of those that are readily available. So I'm quite happy to have that variety here. The only reason I didn't pick it amongst my existing set is just so I could pick something slightly different. Let me just wipe that lens. There we go. But anyway, they've sent me a tree. It's come in a box and I'm just going to pull it out and see what I've got. Now, ordinarily, I recommend growing from bare root trees. Plant them during the dormant period, either late this year or then through until the spring next year. I always think that the bare root specimens, they establish much better than something in a pot. I assume this is in a pot. It is the wrong time of year for a bare root plant, but let me take this out and let's take a look at it. Yeah, it's in a pot, but at least it's a square pot. So a square pot, as I mentioned on the last video, I always think that's much better than a round pot because the roots don't tend to spiral round it quite the same. So I'm a little surprised to see it in this state at this time of year. Oh, they're really going to wish they sent me something better. This is another nasty looking graft, I've got to be honest. I'm trying to think when this tree would have been grafted. I mean, it ought to still be in leaf. I mean, I'm looking at all my other trees here. They're still in leaf. Only a few of the older leaves are starting to turn now. The pears go before the apples. The apples are still putting on new growth. This is 1-year-old wood here, but we're down into 2-year-old and then a little stump of 3-year-old wood, which is a little bit surprising. And then once again, I do not like the graft. Now I'm just going to fetch a knife and then I can take this grafting tape off and give you a better look at that graft. I'm just going to move the camera into the greenhouse because it's raining so much now I can't keep the rain off of the lens. we've been having a good clear out in the greenhouses so I can actually get back in here. So I've just taken the tape off of that because that joint did not look very good, and I will try and show you this on the close-up in a moment. But once again, we've got a whip and tongue graft, just like the last plant I looked at. And once again, they haven't been matched up very well, in my opinion. And there's a large chunk of this that it hasn't healed and never will heal. I don't know. I think this is another case where it will be okay, but it's not good. It hasn't. I don't think this is a great graft. Let me see if I can pick this up on the camera. So here's the bit that I don't like. This long line down here, this is the rootstock, that's the scion, and these ought to be fused here. The cut on the scion and this on the rootstock there should have been made so that these line up beautifully. That should have been taped tight across there, and this should all be healed up so that the cambium in this area on both the rootstock and the scion are nicely aligned and all of that fused. Now we do have callus here. This part looks like it has healed reasonably well from about there down. I mean, this is a gnarly old bit of wood here to try and work with. I think I would have looked for a nicer section of wood on this side. You can see where the graft is healed here, but again up here it's a bit of a mess. Looks like the cut was made here. It's never going to line up with that. This is a nasty piece of wood, and actually I don't like the look of this area at all. There's a bit of a mess in there. Yeah, that is just not a good graft, and you can see daylight through it down to here, and yeah, I don't think that's particularly good. I would not be happy if I had bought that plant, I must be honest. Well, I don't think Suttons are going to be too happy with me. Again, it's a free plant. I did complain a little bit in the last video about what I thought was a slightly dodgy graft, and they've sent me one that is arguably rather worse than that. So I don't know. I wouldn't have grafted this piece of scion wood here. I don't like it. In fact, I would have rather made a different graft with this nice young piece of wood here. But I mean, when you're looking for a point to graft at, you take a nice stem and you look for a clear area where the diameter is consistent and it's nice and tidy. This is a really gnarly bit of stuff there. They've chosen to graft this, I think, at not the right point, and the scion wood is really not great. But then if we just look at how poorly these line up, I mean, I'm sure they're doing it at high speed, but yeah, I don't think that's a good result. So what will happen here? Well, I'm going to stick this pot just in the ground out there for now. I'm going to think about whether I actually want to pull out that existing tree and replace it with this. I don't like the look of that graft. I really don't. I think the one on the other plant, it may well be okay in the long run, but I don't like the look of this here. I don't like the colour of it or the look of it. No, I mean that's nasty. So, oh, I was really pleased to get this because this would have made an ideal replacement for that. The one I want to get rid of but yeah, now I've got a decision to make. Now, when you get bare root trees, if you're not ready to plant them, those of course have to be dealt with somehow. And I've done in previous videos on where I've healed them in. So you just make a hole somewhere convenient. It can be outdoors, it can be undercover if conditions are hard. It can even be in a pot and then dunk it in the ground. Now, this one I could just keep in its pot, but because I'm not going to be planting it in the right place for some time, I think I'd rather get it out of the pot, get it into the ground, and then at least I don't have to worry about keeping it watered. And it doesn't need any more water today. So I'll go and do that, and we'll take a quick look at the roots while I'm doing that. Let's have a look. Oh, it's not a bad little root ball there. But I don't like this though. The way they, even in a square pot, they're still winding around a bit. I want to pull a little bit of that out, because you want the roots to get out into the planting site, not to stay there in a compact ball. And yeah, bare root really is so much better. If you can get hold of what you want, bare root, that's what I would recommend, to be honest. I don't like planting potted specimens if I can help it. Right, it's getting a good lot of rain today, so there's nothing else I need to do. That will be fine. Keep it at the same height it was in the pot. And that is it for today. Well, once again, I've been moaning about a free plant, but I really wish they had sent me a couple of great specimens, because I'm very happy to receive them, but I've got to tell the truth, and I don't like the look of the graft on this plant. I like it even less than the last one, so I'm really not even sure that I want to put that in place in that row of cordons, because if the graft isn't great long term, it's probably not worth it. I might as well think about buying a replacement somewhere else, but I'm going to think about that another day. Right now, I'm going to get out of this miserable weather. I think the camera's going to be blown over. So from a very wet and windy kitchen garden, thanks very much for watching, and bye for now.